You know those months where you don't really realize just how much you've been reading until you get to the end of the month and you like accumulate all the books to wrap up, and suddenly you've read like 15 books that month. It's been one of those months. Hello lovely people, it's Nicole, and today I am doing my August wrap up. So just a warning, I don't have like over half of the books I read with me because I'm at college. I've mentioned this in a couple videos, and I can only bring like top favorite books. So I'm missing a lot of the books that I've read this month, that pretty much just all the ones that I read in the first half of the month. So the first few books I read as part of a booktubeathon, and I have a booktubeathon wrap up. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll just tell you what they were and just like briefly what I thought of them. So the first book I read was Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. This is about a girl struggling with OCD and sort of being in the popular crowd at her high school and dealing with, you know, friendship stuff and her own mental health issues, and I absolutely loved this one. I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read Wide Awake by David Levithan. This is about a boy who is gay and Jewish in a near future America where the very first gay Jewish president has just been elected, and him and his boyfriend were working on the campaign, and then things start to get called into question. Again, I absolutely loved this. I give it 5 stars. It talks about some things that I normally don't like to read about, but that I think were handled really, really well in this. Absolutely loved it. Next, I read Survive the Night by Daniel Vega. This is a horror novel about some teenagers who get trapped underground in New York. I liked this one. I didn't love it. I thought that it was better than Daniel Vega's previous novel, but it still wasn't my favorite thing I've ever read. I give it about 3 stars. Next, I read 2 different versions of the same story. That would be The First Time, Ian's Story and Penny's Story by Abigail Barnett. This is a spin-off of the Boss series by Abigail Barnett. Absolutely adorable. I loved it. I loved being able to see both people's points of view, especially Ian's, because you don't often get the guy's point of view on romance novels. I don't know why, but yeah, I really liked them. I think I gave them both 5 stars. Next, I read The Distance Between Us by Casey West. This is a romance novel, and I thought it was adorable. It's not my favorite of Casey West's books, but it was pretty dang cute, and so I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Read Between the Lines by Joe Knowles. It tells sort of the same day from a bunch of different perspectives. And I wasn't a huge fan of this one. I thought that the different perspectives didn't really like come together in a good way. They didn't really interact well. I just thought it felt really scattered and nothing really impacted me at all. And so I only gave it 2 stars. And the last book I read for the booktubeathon was 21 Proms, edited by David Levithan. This is a collection of short stories about prom, and I don't think I talked about it very much in my wrap-up because I'd only read a couple of the short stories by the end of the booktubeathon, but I really enjoyed this. Some stories more than others. Overall, it was good. There was one story that was written in second person that just really didn't work for me. It felt like it read kind of more like a bad fanfiction, which was unfortunate, but second person was really difficult to write in. I wish I had the book with me so I could go through and tell you which were my favorite stories, but I didn't bring it with me. Overall, pretty average. It was decent. I didn't fall in love with it. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Never Always Sometimes by Adi Alsed. This is about 2 best friends who are in their senior year of high school, and throughout this entire high school experience, they lived by this set of rules that they made in their freshman year, basically trying to prevent them from becoming high school cliches. And now, at the end of their senior year, they decide, screw it, let's do it all. And so they're doing things like dyeing their hair crazy colors and throwing wild parties and just fun stuff like that. I enjoyed this. I really liked it. I thought that the interactions between the 2 main characters were fantastic. There's a point of view switch in the middle, and when that point of view switch happened, I was kind of annoyed because I really didn't like the other character, but I think it was a necessary point of view switch. It really helped sort of get the entire story, helped empathize on sort of all sides, and I ended up having, you know, some respect for each character. It didn't blow me away, but I definitely enjoyed it. I think it was a really solid sort of coming of age, figuring out who you are, high school story. So I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, and this book is, I've never read anything like it. I don't think I ever will again, just because I don't think there is anything else like it. This is about a group of beauty pageant contestants that get stranded on an island, and it's basically Lord of the Flies with beauty pageant contestants, and it's done in this really interesting format where it's like there are commercial breaks, and it's so just snarky and sarcastic and quirky, and I thought it was amazing. Story-wise, it wasn't my favorite thing ever, but thematically, absolutely fantastic. Loved it. So sort of balancing those two things out, I give it 4 stars. The thing is, though, I think this caters to a very specific audience. I am definitely someone who fully embraces the haha, radical feminist killjoy kind of thing. And if you're that kind of person, I think you'd love this. If you're not that kind of person who is really passionate about feminism type things that can have a good sense of humor about it, then I don't think this is for you. It's definitely very specifically directed towards a very specific group of people. I will say one of the things that I really liked about the character development in it was that it wasn't just people learning lessons in one direction. And what I mean by that is it wasn't just, you know, airhead beauty pageant contestants learning how to stand up for themselves and learning to, you know, be their own person and learning that they can be intelligent. There was also a character who was a radical feminist who had to sort of step back and learn from the other beauty pageant contestants and realize that, you know, people are allowed to embrace their femininity, and that doesn't mean that they're just, you know, giving into what the man wants. You know, it's what they want, and that's okay. Then I read Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. This was my very first Colleen Hoover book, and oh my god, I loved it. So good. Absolutely adorable. Sydney and Ridge were fantastic together. And there was a really cool musical element, because if you go online, there's a soundtrack to this because the 2 main characters write music together, and so you can listen to the music that they write, and it all sort of plays into the storyline, and it's so well done. The music is beautiful. So this is about a girl who just finds out that her boyfriend is cheating on her with her roommate, and so she moves in with this guy who she's been talking to for a little while. They've been writing some music together. And so she moves in with him and his roommates, and they have to deal with the fact that they're kind of falling for each other, but he has a girlfriend. One of the really interesting things about this was that despite the fact that Ridge had a girlfriend, and so that was sort of an obstacle in the plot, I didn't hate Maggie. I thought she was so sweet. I want the best for her, and I feel like in romance plotlines where there's an existing girlfriend or an existing partner for one of the main characters, it's so easy to make them a villain. It's so easy to make them hateable, and Colleen Hoover didn't do that, and I really, really loved that. So I gave this 5 stars. I highly recommend it. I am so excited to read other Colleen Hoover books. The next book I read was My Life with the Walter Boys by Ali Novak. I don't know if you can tell, I'm really feeling the contemporary romances right now. Anyway, this is about a girl who is used to living on the Upper East Side in New York. She has a very wealthy family, you know, everything she could ever want. And then her family dies in an accident, and so she has to move across the country to live in a house with 12 boys, which is a bit of a culture shock for her. And there's a romance aspect in it. And overall, I enjoyed this. I really did. I thought it was funny and charming, and I loved getting to know each of the different Walter boys. My only problem was that it felt like there was a lot of just sort of stretching out of a very simple plotline. And I felt like there was a bit of a love triangle in here that felt a little muddled at times. Lots of lack of communication stuff that I found really frustrating. But that being said, I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read a graphic novel, and that was Sex Criminals by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. This is about 2 people who find out that when they orgasm, they can stop time, which is pretty cool. And they use that power to rob banks. I liked this. I didn't absolutely love it, but I did really enjoy reading it. The art style is so cool. It's very funny, lots of sort of bad sex puns, little bit NSFW, actually a lot of it NSFW, but I'm definitely really interested in reading more. It felt like a lot of this volume was set up, so I'm very much interested in reading the next edition and seeing what happens. I gave this 4 stars. Next book I read was Some by David Eagleman. This is a collection of 40 different tales from the afterlife. David Eagleman is a neuroscientist, I believe. Yeah, a neuroscientist, which I think is really cool that he sort of has that background and is using that in writing these stories. A lot of them pull from various mythologies. I tabbed my favorites. It's a beautiful book. It's a very sort of, it's one of those books that makes you become a little introspective, think about what you believe and what resonates with you. A lot of just absolutely beautiful lines. I definitely recommend it. And it's one of those books that you can sort of take what you need and leave what doesn't really speak to you, which I really appreciate. I gave this 5 stars. Next book I read was Crimson Bound by Rosamund Hodge, and this is a retelling of sort of a mixture of Red Riding Hood and The Girl with No Hands. I was so excited to get into this because I read Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge and absolutely loved it. I flew through it. This one, not so much. It felt like it was sort of dragging a bit. Nothing really happened for the first 200 pages, which is frustrating. And then I didn't really care about any of the characters. Like, they were in peril and I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. Which is sad, because when characters are in peril, you should be worried about them. I don't know, nothing in this book really stood out to me or gave me strong emotions. Even the mythology felt a little bit confused. A lot of times I thought things weren't really well explained. A lot of the politics and a lot of the action scenes got confusing. And so this wasn't for me. I'm really disappointed. I gave it only 2 stars. And the last book I read was The Lover's Dictionary by David Levithan. This is a love story told through dictionary entries and little vignettes inspired by each word. I loved this book so much. I just read it, I just finished it last night. So just beautiful and like enchanting. The little vignettes are really interesting because, first of all, they're completely out of order in the relationship. It is in no way chronological. There are a couple of them that feel very deliberately placed, but most of them are just sort of scattered, and I really liked that. It made it feel like just sort of an outpouring of emotions as they came, and it felt really honest, and I absolutely loved it. Also, one of the cool things was that with the vignettes, because it was just little glimpses of their relationship, a lot of them were things that, you know, I've seen in my relationships or in my friends' relationships that, you know, I can identify with, that really spoke to me, that were just beautiful. I loved this. I thought it was fantastic. I highly recommend it. Absolutely beautiful. 5 stars. So those are all the books I read this month. 15 novels and 1 graphic novel. I'm pretty happy with that. So those are all the books I read in August. I kind of surprised myself with how much I read. I didn't think I was going to be able to read a lot because of the move to college, but I ended up reading, I think, 15 books, some of those novels, some of those nonfiction, and 1 graphic novel. So I'm pretty damn happy with that. Well, I have written reviews for a lot of these on Goodreads, so I will link those in the doobly-doo if you want to check those out. Let me know what you read in the comments. I love you, and I will see you later.